Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. We have two meetings on the agenda today. First is a public hearing. The second is the committee of the whole meeting. So we're going to start out with the public hearing first, and then upon completion of the public hearing, then we'll move into our public committee of the whole meeting. The public hearing is as follows. Today's date is Tuesday, February 6, 2024. The time is 9 a.m. Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Virginia, Minnesota will hold a public hearing Tuesday, February 6, 2024 at 9 a.m. in the City Council Chambers, 327 First Street South, Virginia, Minnesota, relating to proposed amendment to City Ordinance Chapter 12 of the City Code entitled Subdivision Regulations, parentheses, plating, parentheses, unquote, Section 1 and Section 2D. A copy of the proposed amended ordinance is on file and available for the public inspection during regular business hours at the office of the City Clerk at the City of Virginia Hall, City Hall, 327 First Street South, Virginia, Minnesota, and on the city website, which is as follows, www.virginiamn.us. That's www.virginiamn.us. All interested persons may appear at the public hearing and present their views orally or in writing. We do have the ordinance amendment disseminated to all the city councilors for review. This is a public hearing to review the proposed changes to the city plat. Pam, do we have any written correspondence addressing this public hearing?
No, I have not, Mayor.
Have you received any telephone calls or any other form of communication relating to this public hearing?
I have not.
Okay, thank you. For the general public's edification, I think I'm going to ask Jenny if you're willing to just give us a quick synopsis of the reason for this change and how it came about.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. So what we're looking for here is to add some definitions into the subdivision ordinance pertaining to the Safe Routes to School program and funding that's available through that program. In order to meet, a checkbox requirement of applying for that funding, there needs to be language in the subdivision ordinance since about, I think, 2015, 2016 is when that became available. So anytime after that, as long as ordinances have language in it pertaining to the funding, we can apply for and receive funding if awarded. Does that explain it, or do you need further explanation?
No, that was very good. Thank you for that, Jenny. We appreciate that very much. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this public hearing relative to this ordinance change for planning as outlined in a synopsis by our planning director, Jenny Boubinet? Any city council has any concerns, comments, or about the requested ordinance change? Okay, seeing none, Britt, anything else to disseminate? Anything from legal with respect to this ordinance?
No, Mayor. Everything looks to be in order. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Jenny?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. If there are no other comments, questions, or discussion, there are no communications that were disseminated or forwarded to our city clerk for consideration. So seeing there's no other comments related to this public hearing, we will close the public hearing. It's at 9:05 a.m. This public hearing is closed. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the committee of the whole meeting. The following meeting will be held today, Tuesday, February 6, 2024, here at the Virginia City Hall, 327 First Street South in Virginia, Minnesota. We are going to call this meeting to order at 9:06 a.m. and we'll turn our agenda over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bendis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Mr. Matt Reed from SEH, our city engineer of record. And the first item Matt wants to discuss is the request approval of professional services agreement for additional service task for the 2023 street improvement project and approve the resolution.
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. So yeah, I've got a couple items, but we'll start with that one. Project started, I don't know if everybody remembers, that started back in 2020. Here it's 2024 already. So it's going on a little over 3 years. Over the course of the project, we've had some timeline changes, some additional work we've had to do, things like that. So that's what this request is for. There were several other tasks. I was able to absorb a lot of it, to be honest with you. In our original budget, I absorbed as much of it as I could. Came out that there was just some additional tasks that I was unable to absorb, so I'm hoping that the council will consider a fee amendment request for me. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of the items if you'd like. They're outlined in your packet.
Yes, thank you, Matt. I had an opportunity, and I'm sure the rest of this council has had an opportunity to review that, so thank you. Any questions from the council? Any action to be taken on the council with respect to the request for the approval of professional service agreement for additional service tasks for the 2023 street improvement project? And there's a resolution in our packet to consider moving to the council meeting next Tuesday. Councilor Johnson.
I will move the resolution to the meeting on Tuesday.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the resolution, or request for professional services by SCH to our next city council meeting next Tuesday. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Beyondich.
The total amount is $19,600.
Correct.
So that's in addition. So where would that be coming from?
Jump in any time here, but that's going to come out of our bond.
Yeah, it's part of the project budget. Yep.
So was it in there before, or is this an addition to what was in there?
I guess you could say it probably was in addition to, there was contingencies built into the budget, so there probably is enough to cover that. Yeah.
And you're comfortable with it? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The second item is approve the resolution authorizing advanced construction agreement for 10th Avenue South and 13th Street South.
So moved.
Move to approve and move forward to the next council meeting by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Item number 2 on the agenda is discuss and review engagement contract with Hairball Productions, LLC for a concert at Iron Trail Motors Event Center on Saturday, April 13th, 2024.
And we have to give us some additional information regarding this contract is our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. Bree was going to be here to present this to you today, but a customer walked in to have a tour of the building, so she's running a little bit late. So I will try to muddle through this contract and answer any of your questions that you have. As you know, we like having concerts at the arena, but we want to do it in a way that is cost effective for us and that we can operate in the black with them. We believe that a Hairball concert would be one of those events. So we have the Hairball concert, and then we will also have a production contract also that would go with this.
One question, Brian. I know we had Hairball here in the past, and it appeared as though it was a successful event. And so was it?
We did not bring Hairball in. Lee Altman brought Hairball in and rented the miners. I believe that was back in 2019 was the last time Hairball was in town. Most recently, Hairball was over at the Discovery Center this past fall. They have a track record of selling out the venues that they are in. Currently, I believe they're out in Colorado even performing and selling out venues out there. So we could and should expect a large crowd that evening.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And the reason I asked that, knowing that it was a private individual that brought this to the city, now we're bringing this production, that's where you have to have this production agreement as well.
Correct.
Correct, okay. Thank you very much for the clarification and clarification for the general public. Councilor Motley.
Brian, what are you planning on charging for the tickets, and how many people would we need to surpass the 25,000? Like,
And those are the questions that Bree was prepared to answer that I don't have the information. We're going to charge the same price that other venues in the area have been charging for their concert. And I want to say that we need 1,000 or 1,200 in attendance to hit the break-even point, but I may be high on that number. 900.
900.
Thank you.
Yep.
Then did you know what you were going to charge? I'm just curious, what would you be charging a ticket?
Trying to get to my email. Unfortunately, my computer's not working either. I believe it's $39.95 plus fees we were going to charge for the ticket, because we were going to be trying to say the same as what Black Bear and the Discovery Center charged for.
And then there obviously will be alcohol, and we get 10% of that. Is there any other type of food that we'll be selling, or?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. So we say $39.99 a ticket? Right around there. So I will offer, part of an organization I belong to, we will donate 2 tickets to give away as a promotion for you as well. So if this is approved moving forward.
I was going to say, let's get this approved before you start donating tickets.
If it's approved moving forward, that'll be maybe an incentive for Bree to consider when they do the advertising for it. Thank you. Colleen?
Yeah, I took a look at the contract, Mayor and Council. The only concerns I have are the identified purchaser. I believe they have Itmec and Bree Coughlin signing. I think that's inappropriate legally. We'd have to change that, obviously, to the city with the mayor signing, I believe. She may be a signer as well, but I think we need to get that changed. I assume they have liability insurance, and again, there's no provision on here, but I assume they'll be providing that.
Yes, and also the issue of the pyrotechnics that they do, they would not be doing pyrotechnics in our facility.
Yeah, I see that you're the marketing manager is here, Bree Coughlin. Bree, Brian has been providing additional information. I think the cost associated with the venue and we answered some of our questions. So could you give us another little bit of a synopsis of where we're going here?
Sure. So I don't know where Brian left off. Do you have nothing? Okay. So the cost for the band itself is $25,000. The production company is $6,000. Excuse me. Our estimated labor is around $2,000, give or take. Their green room, their complete rider will be about $1,000. So that's what they get in the green room. Sorry, running up the stairs indicative of my out of shapeness. The green room and rider, it's just bottles of water and snacks and stuff that they have in their green room. So
There were the 2 questions that were asked was how much was each ticket? I believe that it was $39.95 a ticket, or is that what it was?
So they don't really give us a price, but in my research, Hairball always sells out. They sold out to the Reef. I'm sorry, not the Reef. The Reef was the host. The Discovery Center Amphitheater, which has 1,600 people capacity, they sold that out, no problem. Their tickets were $39 pre-sale and $49 at the door. So if we priced it at $39 just straight, if we didn't even have pre-sale, we have a capacity of 2,400, and we would just need 900 tickets to break even.
And I believe thank you, and I believe our city attorney had indicated there's the contract needs to be amended a little bit to have a different signer on that contract.
Oh, yes, absolutely. They have my name on there, yeah.
And then the other part is do they carry liability insurance?
They have everything, yeah. It's just really a plug and play, yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. I appreciate that we're doing something different. Since having you on board is probably helping facilitate this, that we are doing it ourselves. So I appreciate that very much. With that said, I'll make a motion to direct staff to make the adjustments and bring the contract forward for official approval on Tuesday.
Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Brian?
One more thing, shameless plug. If you guys enjoy concerts, those of you out in YouTube land, if you enjoy concerts, guys, if you want to stay out of the doghouse for this Valentine's Day, this Saturday, February 10th, we are having a concert at the event center. The Duluth Transit Authority is going to be playing in the ballroom. Tickets are currently on sale, both online and at the event center. Not only do you get 3 hours of entertainment, you also get a delicious meal, and you get 2 drink tickets included with it, all for the killer price of $64.95. So, and catering is by the Whistling Bird. I know the mayor already has his ticket, but I'm still waiting for you other counselors to get your tickets, and you better do so and bring your significant other before it's too late and you spend Valentine's Day in the doghouse. So don't be like me and wait till the last minute. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much. Okay. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bree.
Item number 3 is review the resolution authorizing the sale of land to Joy Global.
Okay, thank you. This is the land that we cleared and encumbered and ready for the purchase to put that back on the put it on the tax rolls for Joy Global.
Part of their lease agreement, part of their development agreement, they had a lease agreement that allowed them to purchase the property from the city for $1.
Right. Yeah. And okay, thank you. First, Councilor Motley, and then over to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Motley.
I feel comfortable with this, and I would move to. I guess I would move it ahead to the council.
Okay, Councilor Paulson makes a motion to move it forward. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, well, motion by Councilor Paulson to move it forward. Is there support?
Support.
By Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. I just had one question. What will the recognized property taxes be? Not sure that I saw that on here.
Mayor?
Yes, Sherry, please.
Yeah, I do need to tell you that this is a tax abatement. Started in 2013, and it's 100% abatement. You have 7 years left before it'll hit the tax rolls.
Okay, so after this purchase, then it's an additional 7 years. Okay, thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 4 is review the RFP for the golf course leasing.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Motley.
Sherry, what do you think of this agreement or this contract?
Well, let me just pass you my mic. You're on?
We're on.
You're on.
Okay. I just, I've looked it over and actually talked with Britt about it too. Our key here is not to go in the hole or cost us anymore. It would be nice to break even and at least make up some maintenance for the equipment and that. So if you look at what page is it on, Britt? Ooh, hang on.
59.
Let me pull it apart here. There is a 10% based on revenue, and the lowest we'd go is $63,000 a year for rent. Yeah, it's on.
Remember, this is just the RFP. This is not the actual contract. So what happens is we'll get people that'll submit an interest, and then once we select the person that we want to place in the facility, then we would do the contract that would have that stuff solidified in there.
You negotiated then, so thank you.
And, whoops.
Go ahead, and then we'll go to Brian.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sherry.
And I think most everybody knows my feelings on this. I don't like to see us paying for toilet paper, supplies, cleaning supplies, the basic things that you need in running an operation or a business. That should be part of the business entrepreneur's responsibility.
Yeah, I'd just like to make one comment before we go to Brian. Whatever it takes for us to break even or make a profit, but bottom line for me is that we get a monthly rent from them, whatever that's going to be, and they take care of everything else there. And we have some built-in milestones for them to meet in order to maintain the integrity of the contract. Brian?
So in starting to put this together, what I did was I took the last RFP that we had put together and put out and made a few changes. You'll see there are some red lines of things that we have added. Also have researched other RFPs and trends in RFPs that other municipalities have been sending out for similar situations that they may be in when they have a space to be leasing. One of the trends that I've seen has been that they would set a percentage of the previous month's gross revenue that the business took in as the lease, or the lowest amount that they would be willing to accept. In doing that, what you are able to do is generate additional revenue. What I would suggest that we do with that additional revenue that we generate is set it in a fund for deferred maintenance. Because in our agreement, we provide all of the kitchen equipment, we provide the plating, the silverware, all of those things have a life expectancy that we have to replace. So I would like for us to have a funding source that we could be building up so that when we have an oven that needs replacing or a refrigerator that needs replacing, there's money already sitting there that we can tap into to replace those things rather than having to wait until we do a capital improvement bond.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Brian, and I appreciate that 10%. My question is probably both to you and to the city's legal counsel. Can and would that include any catering done in the kitchen for off-site? Since they're using our facility, is that something we could put into the contract to ensure that we are, if they're using our space to generate revenue, we would also see that revenue?
Colleen?
The legal's point of view, there's no prohibition against that. And I don't know that you need to include that in the RFP. You might want to note it, and then you'd flesh it out in the agreement. But yeah, whatever terms you can agree to, that's an appropriate term if you'd like to have.
All right, thank you very much.
And would that be included in the RFP, or is that part of the negotiated of the contract moving forward once we've selected a vendor?
I think you could insert it in here that that's a potential term, or to put everybody on notice that what you're looking for. I would say put it in the RFP if you have any doubt.
Okay, so that's one of the changes I'll be requested to make in that regard as well. So is this similar to like some of the other golf courses? And I've, in preparation for this from last year, made some inquiries. You talked to Pekegama Golf Course, these other places, they kind of do something similar at a smaller scale.
Yeah, this is similar to what other municipalities are putting out in their RFPs.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So the only, I like all the red line. I think it makes sense what you added. The only thing I am concerned about, though, is exactly what you talked about, the 10% of the preceding month's gross revenues, or $5,250, whichever is higher. I'm wondering if that's something we could negotiate with the lease and just leave it off the RFP instead of binding ourselves to that specific, being that specific in an RFP, because we may be able to negotiate a little something maybe different. And then again, it does include the sewer, water, electric, and natural gas. That's what it has been including in the past. And then Sherry, when we get the utility bill, that utility bill that is reflected in our monthly financial statements for the golf course, have we separated that out pretty well, or is that something we still need to work on over the summer months when the pro shop is open? I know I don't know how you figured out if it's a formula or a percentage or what have you, but if we're going based on like say 2023's utility bills, is that going to be accurate? You know, maybe where I'm going with that. Like, I just want to make sure that we're charging the correct number for the utilities to the new leasor.
Mayor?
Lessee.
Sherry, would you kind of respond?
Thank you. Councilor Paulson, you're correct. And now, that is what we're looking for. Last year, I did pull up the utilities. Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, no. So last year, we spent $41,432.
Okay,
So, I'm watching that bottom line. If you go at $5,250 a month lease, you're talking $63,000 a year. So, you got to watch your buffer there. You don't have a whole lot left
right.
for whatever else.
So you have really looked at going forward where we will probably be at with utilities.
Correct.
And that's figured into that. And I'm fine with going out with this RFP. I think just for my comfort level, I would leave that last little segment off so that could be negotiated actually in a lease, and that we're not, because once that RFP goes out, you're pretty much committed, right? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Would you add that as a change, reflecting the change? Should it be approved to move forward, we'll have those changes ready for the next council meeting. My only concern is, not a concern, but I just want to make sure that when we put this RFP, with all the costs associated with that, I'm hoping that we get some vendors that are willing to, that's a high bar for a lease, but I'm hoping somebody will take that upon themselves to recognize the potential for revenue stream and the provide for us. So my last thing is, with all the insurance, everything they have to provide, so the liquor sales on the course is going to be their responsibility, right? Because they're writing it's going to be the bar and the restaurant. So the RFP is for the lease of the entire facility, not just the restaurant, but it includes the bar and the ancillary services that are provided during the golf season for cart service out there. And so part of that, my argument or my request is that once this moves forward into the negotiating stage, once an RFP or as tenant is, we want to make it clear that they're responsible to provide that liquor service for events and coordinate the times in which that liquor service is provided with our golf pro. Because the last few years, particularly, we have these big tournaments. You have 240 golfers coming in for the senior tournaments twice a year. You get the North Lakes Golf Tournament that coming in there. You get the big events where you have the people coming from the cities and down from Canada to play in a variety of places. They expect to have some kind of a service on the course for alcohol and other liquid, a lot of beverages. And I think it would be up to the fact that if you want to put sandwiches on it, whatever agreement would come, but I think they need to coordinate that with those big events to make sure they provide that. In addition to that, and I know this is part of the agreement too, but the problems that we had in the past is that on these big golf tournaments, when they come to the turn and they want a hamburger or whatever it is, I know you can call at the number 18 hole, and when you're making a turn number 9 and order something. But in these big tournaments, you can't do that. So there has to be some way to provide some kind of sustenance. If you're not providing on the course, you're providing the sustenance at the turn so people can come and get a quick bite, a hamburger, a hot dog, whatever, and out the door they go, instead of having to come in, wait, and that backs everything up. So that was one of the concerns that the men's club had. That's one of the concerns that that these big events had. And the other part is being open in the morning for a cup of coffee or something else, because when people come in at 7 o'clock in the morning for their tea time, there's nothing for them to get. They can't get a cup of coffee or anything. So all those kind of things, I think I just mentioned those to be rolled in as to be talked about at whatever stages is of this RFP, if it's in the RFP, or if it's in the negotiating stages, whatever that case may be. But I'll be looking for some of that stuff as we negotiate the contract moving forward. So, and I know you've already discussed this and have covered all the bases there, Brian, but I just wanted to say that publicly.
Very good. And I believe that this RFP does address each of those items, specifically in the second paragraph of the RFP. It touched on each one of the things that you said, and I wholeheartedly agree that those are important things for us to be looking at when we are interviewing and considering a future leasee in the building.
Thank you very much, Brian. Councilor Motley?
just throwing this out there, not trying to ruffle feathers, but have we ever made money in the restaurant and the bar?
We have years ago in the past when we had one vendor there, I think Mr. Checo, Michael Checo, the senior Checo, was operating the facility, and it was, the city owned it. We paid for everything. Mr. Checo ran it at a profit for us.
So it's,
When Mr. Checo retired, it has not operated at a profit.
okay, so going forward, it's still in the city's best interest to maintain this building and not sell it? I guess where I'm going with it?
Well, we can't sell the building yet. We have a couple years left on a bond that we're required to hold on to that for a period of time. But once that bond expires, I think it's in a couple more years, we will have that option to sell it if we wanted to.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
You're very welcome. Is that correct, Britt? All right, thank you. Okay, anything else on the lease proposal? There's been some recommended changes that's been annotated for us to consider moving forward. And if there's nothing else, I look for some council action and have any changes that was recommended along with the presentation by our Park and Rec Director for this lease to go out for the RFP, to have it ready for a final consideration and vote at the next council meeting. So looking for council action. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more
Sure.
point of discussion, if it's okay. Under the desired criteria to propose, do we need to have something in there that their sales tax needs to be current if they are a current restaurateur?
I believe that was in the contract.
So that's actually in the lease portion and doesn't need to be in the RFP portion? Okay.
Because we all expect that a business is going to pay their taxes.
Anyway, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, I'll move this forward with that one amended change. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have a couple, yes, but Councilor Paulson makes a motion to move this to the next council meeting for consideration with the recommended changes that are being proffered here. It's been moved by Councilor Paulson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Another one for you, Brian. Number 5 is Landa Loon request for waiver of fee for the Landa Loon Festival.
I know traditionally we have done so.
Traditionally, we have done so. Per our fee waiver policy that we have, all fee waivers for park facilities go before the Park and Rec Commission. Park and Rec Commission is in support of waiving the fees for the park for the event, but they are not in favor of waiving the fees for the Klein Cupoletti building for the organization meetings and wrap-up meetings. In full disclosure, I am the city's representative on the Land of the Loon Committee, so I may have a different viewpoint, and my wife is also a member of the committee, so I may present a skewed opinion when it comes to this, but just wanted to let you know that the Park and Rec Commission did not support the 5 or 6 dates of utilizing the Klein Cupoletti building, but did support waiving the fees for the park itself for the duration of the event.
So the waiver that's in our packet to review, does that include the waiver for the Klein Cupoletti building, or does it not?
Because the Park Commission has already agreed to waive the fees for the park, this letter in your packet, it does not address those things. It is just addressing the Klein Cupoletti building itself. Because Land of the Loon would like the council to essentially overrule, which is your right and everything, to overrule the Park and Rec Advisory Committee.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So the fee waiver equates to $810, and that's at the regular reservation rate. Is that the rate for a nonprofit?
No, that is the regular reservation rate. Nonprofit would be 25% off of that.
And that the Land of the Loon Committee is a nonprofit entity, I believe.
Technically, I believe they are.
So I'd like to maybe look into that. And then was the reason given for the, from the Park and Rec Commission, was it just because it would set a precedent for other entities that would come forward?
Because they don't like waiving fees. It does create a precedent, although we have been giving this to Land of the Loon for probably decades, or at least since the Clinton Cupoletti building has been available as a rental facility. The Park and Rec Commission also brought up the fact that they'd like to see the Land of the Loon Committee, because Land of the Loon Committee does have an economic impact on our community with all the people that they bring. They'd like to see the committee continue that economic impact by meeting at a local restaurant or establishment for their meetings and adding to those businesses in that way for these selected dates.
Okay, and then I guess I just did the math, so it's like $607 if it's a nonprofit rate. What does it cost to rent for a tent or a booth space?
At Land of the Loon?
At Land of the Loon.
I want to say last year it was $110 for 10 by 10, but I could be incorrect on that.
And does the city of Virginia pay for their tent?
No, they give the city of Virginia, the police and fire departments, all comp spaces.
Okay, so if we take all those tents into consideration, it may equate to that $607 or approximately.
Probably more than that,
More
yes.
than that. So we're really kind of trading in-kind services.
Yes.
Is the way I would look at that. And I would be comfortable waiving that based upon the fact that the city of Virginia does not pay for the booth space so the committee, they're losing money by not charging the city booth space. So that's kind of where I would stand on that.
And they do provide the city with one of the prime booth spaces.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Have we considered an alternative meeting space that's not $125?
Actually, Land of the Loon Committee has discussed that once the weather warms up, actually meeting in the park in one of the shelters that we have. So yes, but for the February meeting, they would prefer to be indoors because typically in February it's cold.
Okay. I appreciate that conversation has been held. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have one question, and then go to Councilor Motley. So, Councilor Paulson brought up this as an in-kind service, which is, and obviously very supportive of that. The question is, what other in-kind services we provide? I know the Land of the Loon is a 2-day event, and I know we have Park and Rec staff running pretty ragged about that. So do we provide any in-kind services outside of their normal work schedule and the normal work assignments while the Land of the Loon Festival is going on Saturday and Sunday and in preparation Friday?
Land of the Loon Committee takes care of doing all of the marking of the park as far as where the booth spaces go. They do all that organization. What we end up doing ahead of time is we obviously make sure that the grounds are cut right beforehand, but that's normal maintenance that we would do. We just may change the day that we are doing it. We provide extra trash cans. Public Works does come by on Saturday morning and empty all of the trash cans that are in the park, which is not part of their normal Saturday route, but they add that on. Land of the Loon provides all of the porta potties that are in there, so that is not an in-kind service. We do provide some staff that is in the park throughout the day as an in-kind service that is doing trash pickup and keeping our park looking very presentable throughout the duration of the event.
And that's in addition to what you would normally schedule your workers. So we have some in-kind worker service there as well.
That is correct. Normally, they would not be working on a Saturday or Sunday, but due to the volume of people in the park, we do schedule staff to be in the park at that time.
Certainly, and understandable. I just wanted to make that clarification to the public as well. Councilor Motley.
I just want to say thank you to the Land and Loon Committee here, first of all, but I sit on the liaison to the Parks and Rec, and I feel like they have a lot of groups coming in and wanting everything for free, and they are frustrated, I feel, and I agree with their frustration on that being the case, and so I want to support the Parks and Rec on this decision and not give them the building for free. I would be, however, fine with a nonprofit discount to them, but I do want to thank the Land Commission for everything they do, but I'm not one that gives something for free, so I'm going to be standing by Parks and Rec Commission. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So what is the motion that you're asking for today?
To waive the fee, or Land of the Loon Committee is asking for the fees for the Klein Cupoletti building to be waived.
Not the fees to the park, or not given to the park, only to the Klein Cupoletti.
For the Klein Cupoletti building, for their meetings, for their 6 meetings that are listed on page 61 of your packet.
Okay, very good, thank you. Councilor Freely moves to approve the waiver of the fees to the Land of the Loon. Is there support for that? Is there support? Support. Support by Councilor Johnson. Further discussion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one thought. Instead of agreeing to waive the fees, so we're not setting a precedent of waiving fees, could we say we will accept in-kind service like a trade? How could you craft that so you're not setting a precedent for other groups coming forward for fee waiving, but that in this instance we would be trading basically booth space that the city of Virginia occupies in trade for the rental of the Klein Cupoletti building? I'm just trying to, so we're supporting the Park and Rec Committee or Commission, but also supporting a longstanding practice.
Would that, if Colleen, could you answer, would that be construed as, and I get it, would that be construed that trying to circumvent the system, so to speak?
So I have some hesitation about putting anything in stone. I mean, you can certainly justify the decision-making with any terms or letter you want to provide. I guess going forward, I don't know that you want to set an exact policy on every situation because it needs to be somewhat flexible, I would think. I mean, that's not necessarily a legal opinion, it's more of a practical idea, but there's nothing saying you can't respond back with in recognition. I mean, the other concern I have, I guess, practically speaking, is if that becomes something the Land of the Loon Committee decides to change too. So, you know, the free booth space, I mean, they could relook at that too. So you kind of get in that position where, you know, things that have been longstanding practices that are accepted could get reviewed by both sides.
Sure, and I understand that. I think where I was going is just to try to please everybody, where the Park and Rec, then the commission would not feel that this opens the doorway for other entities to come forward and say you did it for one and now we expect it to, you know, so I guess that's why I was just looking at maybe the wording of the motion, and the motion that's on the floor is to actually waive the fees. Could it be worded differently so that it would be more of a trade, in-kind service trade
Certainly
motion?
could say in recognition of blah, whatever, and then go forward. Sure, certainly you can word the motion however you want, and that kind of lets the public know what your thought process was.
Would that be amenable? Maker?
And you know, precedent setting, every individual group that comes to us can present to us why they think there should be waived. It doesn't necessarily relate to why we're waiving it for them, in my opinion. I mean, every issue that comes before us is a separate issue with separate details, and we would review that at that time. But in this instance, for a volunteer group that's been in place for 50, 40 years, whatever it is. I just don't think we should be nickeling and diming volunteers that are putting together these types of events in our community, with the concerns that others coming forth will say, oh, you did it for them, you got to do it for us. That's not necessarily the case, that we always have to do that for them because we did it for them. So that's why I'm moving it forward. I think it's not necessary to save the $810. We'll recoup that in some other fashion, and certainly the economic boom that the city has from the Land of the Loon event will certainly recoup all of that in some fashion.
Thank you. Before we go to Councilor Beyondich, so when we give the Land and Loon the park to utilize for the events, and they're using all these little different buildings and those kind of things, now there's private groups that open these buildings up as part of the Land and Loon Committee. Do they have to pay any other fees for any other rentals inside the park, the Land of the Loon Committee?
The Land of the Loon Committee will be given the entire park at no charge.
That's all I need to know. Perfect, Brian. Thank you very much. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And big discussion on something so small. But I do recall when we had a meeting about the Girl Scouts meeting in a city building, and they were turned away because we had to charge. And I love the Land of the Loon. It brings up, again, for me, commissions that they make a recommendation to the council. And they vetted this out before it came to us. And their recommendation was not to waive those fees, correct?
Not to waive the fees for the Klein Cupoletti building,
Right.
Correct.
Right. Of the staff that works on that weekend, are they overtime or are they straight time? Are they scheduled so they're not on overtime, or how is the scheduling done for that?
Well, there's obviously myself that is working. I'm not eligible for overtime. I'm there from start to finish from Thursday through Sunday. I will utilize some flex time that next week to catch my breath and catch a few Z's. But the Ask Me staff that is being utilized in the park for assisting with any last minute setup needs that may occur, or mainly policing the facility, looking for garbage and keeping the park clean, they are on overtime.
So can you do scheduling anywhere during that time or week where it's not overtime staff working through the weekend, or?
We follow the contract in doing our scheduling.
Okay. And the primary reason the commission was not in favor of the meeting is it?
Don't want to be waiving fees for more than what they have to. And what resonates with me is that they wanted to see the Land of the Loon Committee having their meetings in local establishments and supporting those local establishments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we go back to Councilor Paulson, I'm going to support the motion to waive the fees, because if we waive all the fees and everything for them at the Alcott Park, I mean, I don't understand why we wouldn't waive the fees for this. It's a community event, brings in all the economic issues. I understand the commission's concerns and their impetus and the reasonings for that. But in this particular case, I'm going to support the motion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. There wouldn't be anything to preclude the committee from meeting in the mezzanine. That's no charge, or in the upper, like
No.
right outside of your office where there's tables and chairs.
Yeah, there would not be anything to preclude that. Outside my office, or the table directly outside my office may get a little cramped. Land of the Loon Committee does a great job of having some snacks and beverages at our meetings, so my office area may get a little bit cramped for that. On a side note, I will let you guys know that Monday nights is not a big rental night for the Klein Cupoletti building. Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays are the day that that building is rented out. So it's not like if we waive the fees and commit to Land of the Loon having Monday nights or one Monday night a month in that building that we're losing revenue.
Last question for me before we go to anybody else and then call for a vote. Does the Friends of Public Safety pay for the rental of the Klein Cupoletti building?
No, because they are a city entity.
Thank you very much. Okay. It has been moved and supported to waive the fees for the Land of the Loon Committee at the Klein Cupoletti building. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Friedlieb.
So just to ease the pain of what we might be losing, in the event of some group wanted to rent on a particular night, I'm assuming you guys would find somewhere else to go to, and we'd get the $125 from some other group that might want to rent that night.
I'm very confident that the Land of the Loon Committee, if I approached them and said I have somebody that wants to rent, would move their meeting to a different night or find a different location. They care about our community and want to see it successful.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. Okay, it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Baranzelli, Huffy,
Aye.
Motley,
No.
Friedlieb.
Aye.
A motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Next item, please.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, item number 6, is review the proposed letter of understanding with ASME regarding the 10-hour shifts for utility workers.
Britt, you're comfortable with this?
The reason that this had to be brought up was we had an existing MOU, but that was when we had 8 utility workers. Now we have 6.
Correct.
So we needed to modify the schedule to accommodate.
Thank you. Okay. I figured I understand that, but looking for some clarification for the general public. Thank you. I have no problem with it. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we are in contract negotiations, I'm a little hesitant to enter into an MOU at this point in time. I would rather let the contract negotiations move forward and then see where this document would fall within the new contract or new negotiation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Anyone else? Councilor Motley, and then over to Councilor Freely. Councilor Motley.
I'm just curious, Britt, from what Councilor Paulson just said, do you agree with that, or what do you think, since you're on the negotiating committee? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely understand what Councilor Paulson is saying, and I do agree that maybe we could wait at least a little bit until we know what's going on with the negotiating committee.
So it's not hurting us by delaying this?
Did you already implement the schedule, Brian? Yeah, it's already been implemented. So, yeah.
We could move the table
It's until the
pending.
next committee of the whole for sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We are reviewing it, not necessarily taking action, but it's to review the proposed letter of understanding. Councilor Beyondich.
I will make a motion to table until we are completed with negotiations.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Beyondich moves to table. Is there support?
Sorry,
Support?
further discussion.
Okay, support by Councilor Motley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 7 is discuss approving the proposal from Youth Baseball to install new light fixtures to the poles at the Lenari Field in the expense of Little League.
Well, long time needed, long time coming, a win-win when these are being paid for by another entity. Looking for your thoughts and comments. Brian Silber.
My thoughts and comments are, this is why we want to have a strong relationship with our volunteer organizations in the community. As you know, we do not charge rent to youth baseball for utilization of our fields. That is becoming a trend in other cities around to start charging their youth organizations rent on the field. If we were to have charged rent on our fields this past year, One, the youth baseball organization would have probably have said, okay, well, we're going to take all of our games to Gilbert and Evelyn. Thanks for playing. We're taking our toys and going home. Instead, we have a great partnership with this organization, and they are looking at replacing and upgrading all of the lights on the fields in Olcott Park, which is a project that, if we were to undertake it, would probably be pushing a six-figure project. So at the end of the day, having a strong relationship with a volunteer organization is financially beneficial to the city of Virginia.
Thank you, Brian. As long as all the liability things are taken care of, you worked out the responsibilities for maintaining and operating the lights and repairing them whenever possible. All that's part of this agreement. It's a great partnership moving forward, so thank you. And I worked in Minnetonka, coached Little League Baseball for a long time, and all the fields there were privately owned fields, privately funded by volunteers of the community. The whole program paid for everything. So for them to step up to the plate to pay for lighting in a facility that's not owned by them shows a strong commitment to youth organizations, particularly baseball in this community. So I'm fully supportive of it. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Brian, I just have a couple questions regarding the term Little League. It's been a couple of years since I've been in the baseball world with my kids, but I always thought it was Virginia, City of Virginia. We didn't renew with Little League or however that worked, and then it was a City of Virginia program.
When I first got here 5 years ago, the City of Virginia had Virginia Youth Baseball. And then we also have the older kids baseball, which the city runs that program, which is Babe Ruth, Legion, and the VFW programs. So Little League Baseball is your T-ball, your minors, your majors, the younger, your elementary kids that are playing in this organization. Here a few years ago, probably 2, maybe 3 seasons ago, Virginia Youth Baseball and Evelyn Gilbert Youth Baseball merged to form Rock Ridge Youth Baseball Association at the same time that the school system merged. So a lot of or almost all of our youth organizations went under the rebranding and merging to form Rock Ridge Youth whatever sport. So this is now the Rock Ridge Youth Baseball that is requesting to make this donation. The lights would become our property after they're installed.
So the only difference is that it's just not Little League, quote unquote, the actual Little League as an organization.
Correct.
It's Rock Ridge Youth.
Yeah, and they had been called Little League for a while until Little League USA didn't like them utilizing that name because they weren't sanctioned Little League, so they became Virginia Youth Baseball. And
thanks for that, because I knew that over since the Rock Ridge merger, there has been some significant changes. And then just one last question, since you did mention Babe Ruth. I did get a phone call that the cost to be in the Babe Ruth League went up significantly this year, and I think it was $175. And there was just concern among some parents that it was the cost is becoming prohibitive for students or families that may not be able to afford that cost. Was there a reason that cost increased so significantly?
because we are no longer underwriting any of youth baseball, or our portion of youth baseball, the BFW, Babe Ruth, and Legion levels of baseball, it is money in, money out, so that program has to be self-sufficient rather than the city underwriting any portion of that.
And is there any consideration for families that may have a hardship?
We do have for that program and for our figure skating program a scholarship program that people can apply for.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to segue, but since this came out, was there any communication given to parents that if there was a hardship, that there was an option to help offset the new price on joining?
Technically, I don't believe we've even put out our prices or begun registration for that program yet. So no, that has not been communicated.
So if that hasn't happened, I did get a call that they did get some communication with that new amount, but if there has been no written communication, maybe that could be included in the future.
When we do our sign-up notifications and everything, yes, we can include that.
And thanks for the clarification on Little League. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor is to discuss approving the proposal to install new light fixtures. That's the motion. Is there a motion in support?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilor Motley to move forward with approving the light fixtures. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely. Further discussion, Councilor Johnson. Thank you for your patience.
Absolutely. I believe something went home from the schools about youth baseball. I don't know if it was specific about ours, but that's probably where that came from. And I do want to point out that the 4% levy this is one of those unintended consequences of cutting our budget so significantly around this. We were funding it, and the 4%, that's some of the cuts. I remember having that discussion that we're not funding youth baseball because of some of the cuts and wanting to make sure our budgets were spot on. So I will say that that's a direct result. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There is a motion on the floor and approval to approve the proposal from youth baseball to install new light fixtures to the poles at the Larry Field at their expense. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Item number 8 is we have been notified by Stauber's office that they're looking for fiscal year 25 community project funding request from the city. So we had internally between us talked about, it really be nice to look at upgrading some of our public works facilities. So we had Matt Reed just do a quick, really fast thought meeting with Jim Rosford about what we could do in the first phase of a upgrade down at Public Works. This is just for discussion. If there's another plan we want to go with, that's fine. But I just need something to submit to Stauber's office relatively soon about what we might want to have federal funding for in fiscal year 25.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Motley?
So if we went for this, are we going to be tied to some time frame going forward where we might be hitting the city taxpayers with another building? Britt?
That's hard to answer that because it depends on what we get. So if we get fully funded, then no, we wouldn't be. It would be all federally funded. So, and at that time, you have to enter into an agreement with the Fed. So we could always say no. If we don't think we can afford it, we just don't do it.
But we won't know until we actually apply. So there is okay, so we're not binding into some, okay.
Not this is just basically like doing a letter of intent. It's just and it's really a simple pre-app. Okay. And then if we get invited to go on to the fuller app, then we need a little more information. This is literally all I would need to supply for this initial discussion.
Perfect. I'm going to make a motion to support this.
A motion by Councilor Motley to support proposed federal fiscal year 2025 community funding project request for us to move forward with that. Is there support? By Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? For me, just quickly, applying for this funding doesn't tie the city into the expenditure. We don't know how much money we're going to get. The sooner we apply, the higher on the list we're going to be for potential consideration for money to move forward. So like Britt says, we can always say no if we're not able to do that, or we can figure out what that's going to be. But so applying for the funding is imperative that we do that as quickly as we can moving forward. So, I mean, you talk about not having another building and looking for something else. Well, we tried streets. We got $3 million from Congressman Stauber's office to help unencumbered requirements to do some alleys, which we never were able to do before. And so it depends upon what you're asking for and what the earmarks are going to be and what substantial community funding. It's not $500,000 for this and $200,000 for that. It's got to be a substantial community project, so whatever we decide that to be, applying for that doesn't necessarily mean that we're tied into accepting that funds if the project we select moving forward is not feasible for the city to operate. And regardless of where you get it at, it could be from anywhere from half, it could be fully funded or not. And we won't know that until the funding opportunities come out. So, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So on the very last sentence, the estimated cost for Phase 1 is $4 million. And that, is that what we would be asking for is $4 million? Okay, and then obviously there would be other phases, so it would be additional dollars going forward. Now, once that this is applied, is it earmarked for a specific project, or could a project be changed? Because I know our focus had been on public safety, then we had talked about infrastructure. So this is a pretty specific request. Can it be more generic, or does it have to be this specific? And if it does have to be that specific, once it would be approved or allocated, can we change the direction of the allocation?
It depends. I have seen it happen where we literally put in this information, and then that's not what all got approved was just a dollar amount to the city of Virginia for whatever you're doing. But I've also seen it where this is what you said it was for, it has to be for this. So it kind of depends on the earmark and where it falls.
Okay, and like with the last go around with the $3 million, that was specifically, I think, for streets.
Yep.
And then we fell behind, or we were ahead of the project, so we couldn't apply it because we were already too far in the project down the
project down the
line.
So we had to stay within the LMI area.
And had the money and applied it to alleys.
Correct.
So I guess before we go on a huge building of a new building, phase 1, 2, 3, however many phases, I guess I know we need to apply for it. It's very smart to do so, but I really would like some clarification if there's going to be an actual ability to reallocate dollars if we chose to not move forward with that large of a building project.
Not if it's still the public works project, we do whatever we want. If they only give us $2 million and we tell them we're going to bring it down to a smaller building and do this, that's fine. It's just got to be what we said it was going to be.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be as big as we thought it said it was going to be. It doesn't have to be as small. It can be, we changed our mind, we want to go a little bit bigger, we want to go a little bit different. Like with the streets, like you mentioned, because the street project they gave us some money for, we already were in process of 3rd Avenue and such. It only had to be in a low to moderate income area. So it had to be the same kind of area. They allowed us to move
There's a little
bit of wiggle room
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just something we had, the timing has to be right. We have to disclose it up front before we sign that final agreement that we need to change to a smaller footprint or a different location or whatever it may be.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of wiggle room in that.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that the public works folks down there are being considered for anything. Their facilities are basically tin buildings that are insulated. The last upgrade down there that I'm aware of was when they remodeled the office space when Jim came in, and they made a decent, safer, cleaner break room and gave Jim his own office, which he definitely needed. But the buildings themselves are old. They're not energy efficient. They are not necessarily ideal working conditions. And I think that this would serve a couple of purposes. One, it would demonstrate to our employees that we value the work they do. I think it has a lot to do with public safety in that we will have better upkeep of our vehicles. When they're parked down there now, they're like sardines, and I would think that we would be creating the space needed for better and a more efficient care of city fleets. So I think this is a great opportunity, and being that it is just hey, this is our idea, I think there's no reason to not move forward with it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And applying for the public work project, I think is important to move forward as well. If everybody ever been down there, I'll give you one really quick example. When they're moving the loon down to the state fair, there was a number of news organizations that came up to take some pictures and get an interview and show where the land the loon is. It's on the trailer, and it came down, and it was raining that night. And when they came down, and I went down to give a little interview with them, and then we were standing in 2 inches of water in that building where the loon was standing. The water was flowing in there. It's absolutely embarrassing and unconscionable that it's that way, but that's the way it is. And then, of course, with the mechanics, sometimes you got that one section, all you got is a dirt floor there. I mean, so it does need upgrades, whether it comes from this request or not. We do have to have that on the radar for our building upgrades, because we're at a point now where we haven't upgraded buildings in 60, 70 years. We're at a point now where we have to try to do something. If we get some federal funding to help us at least start the project, I think it's a worthwhile suggestion moving forward. So, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make it clear that my questions and concerns don't mean that I don't agree that we have a dilapidated public works building and that we need to have improvements. What I am basing my questions and concerns about or upon is that in the past, say the public safety building, we received $9 million, and then over phase 1, 2, 3, whatever, we now have a total project cost of over $31 million. So I am trying to look to the future and be prudent with asking my questions and having concerns, not denying that the condition of 67-year-old buildings needs to be addressed. And I fully support looking into that. But my comments and concerns should be valid with regards to where we are currently sitting with a public safety facility and what has happened prior with our Iron Trail Motors Event Center. And I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure, certainly. And I completely understand that. And I wasn't directing any comments with respect to that, Councilor Paulson. What I was doing is directing the comments about when we're looking at this potential building, and your points are well taken and very valid, is for the general public's edification that, why are we doing this? Well, we have an opportunity to go down and look at public works. So it's just not to build a new facility or look at those kind of things. It's for the general public to understand that it's not just, we're just not putting in this money for the sake of putting in the money. We're putting in the money because it's a need that we have. And your points are very valid and very well taken, Councilor Paulson. So I concur 100% with that perspective as well. So, but we do have a motion on the floor and support to move forward with at least the funding request for fiscal year 2025. There has been a motion on the floor and support. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Friedlieb.
Jim, and I'm not going to put you on the spot at this point because there's no not need to, but at some point, I think Jim should maybe provide us with some report of sorts, an evaluation and assessment of the current facilities, the kinds of things that are troubling and or what they're working with versus what they should have to be able to work with, that kind of thing. Give us more specificity and detail in terms of like what we're looking to upgrade and what we're trying to improve upon. And he'd be the one that would have firsthand knowledge to that. So when you can and you're prepared to do so, that would be helpful to us for this particular money that we're seeking. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Anybody else? Any other one? Okay, so it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Final item on the agenda is review the settlement agreement. That this portion of the meeting may be closed as per attorney-client privilege as per Minnesota Statute 13D05 Subdivision 1D.
Okay, before we go on item 9 for a closed session, is there any other items of concern that a councilor would like to bring forward at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll move a motion to go to closed session.
So moved with the break.
Sorry. Yeah, we'll take a quick break, but we'll move to closed session by Councilor Johnson just to support. By Councilor Motley. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. We're going closed session. Take a 5-minute break. Thank you.